So, how does an average human compare with an elite athlete in any sport? So, I came across this random tweet saying how funny the Olympics would be when you keep an average person running alongside the pro athletes in, say, a marathon or a 100-meter dash to see how drastic the difference is. So, this kind of demonstration that I got to see on open day in University of Western Australia was gave somewhat of an appreciation towards that how uh, the videos and television footage that shows these elite athletes is somewhat they just make it look so easy that we lose the appreciation of how difficult all these things actually are, and this demonstration kind of gave a better appreciation. So they mainly depict three main sports, which is cycling, race walking, and marathon. So yeah, hope you like it.
For the 50K event at the Olympics. Are you okay? But in here, we are really interested in how do we measure the body's capacity to produce energy. Welcome to Physiology. So this is obviously your second stop in sports science. So you've seen the fake stuff down there in biomechanics. They make up all their numbers. Nothing they tell you is really true. So they're like the Darth Vader of science, and we're like the Luke Skywalker of science. So you're in physiology, you're in the right place. This is where the real science happens. So who knows what physiology is? Some do, I'm sure they do. Who does PE studies at school? Yep, you do physiology within that?
I was studying exercise.
Yeah. So physiology is really, if you strip it like that, it's about how does the body produce energy to sustain the work that's required, okay, from the exercises. Alright, so physiology can include things like your muscles, how do they work to do that? The enzymes in there, how does the mitochondria work to produce that energy? And obviously that needs some oxygen supplied to it to be able to produce that energy. So where do we get the oxygen from? The air out here. Where do we get it from? It comes into our lungs, okay, and then we deliver it to our muscles throughout the lung. So all of those processes, that's all physiology. So the cells, the systems, how do they collectively come together to help our body produce energy to sustain the work that we want it to do. So I say that in the context of exercise. Okay, so we apply physiology in sports science to domains like sport. Okay, so how do we make athletes run, jump, throw as high or as long or as fast as they can, all the way through to your average Joe. How do we produce enough energy to cycle so that we get some adaptation in the cardiovascular system so that we're healthier. Okay, so we apply these concepts all the way across that spectrum, and that's what we do in sports science as a whole. So sports science as a whole is physiology, doing that, but also it's skill acquisition and motor control. How do we learn new tasks? How do we coordinate those new tasks? Biomechanics, what are the mechanics of our movement, the physics of our movement, which you can see. And psychology. So how do I, in the athlete sense, make sure this athlete is in the zone to compete and perform, through to how do I motivate average Joe to get off the couch to be healthy. So we apply those things across that spectrum, and that's what this degree is set you up with. Okay? And so you might find when you come in, you really love sport, but along the way, you go, oh, I really can see how you can use exercise as medicine. And you might find your interest lies in actually helping people that are unwell or not healthy. Okay, so we have a number of streams within our degree where you might find yourself at the end. So we do a 3-year undergrad degree, which is the same for everyone. But at the end of that, you might go, I really like working with unhealthy people, or sick people, so I'll go down this pathway of being an accredited exercise physiologist. So that's working in the health station, like at a clinic or at the hospital, using exercise as medicine. Or you might go, as most students that come in, really love sport. So then we've got a pathway with some masters in human performance And it's about how do we maximize human potential. That might be in sport, it might be in the fire brigade, it might be with defense, but it's about how do we maximize human potential. But you might go, I really love working with young people and I like to see them develop. So you might think about being a coach or a phys ed teacher. We have a pathway where you could become a teacher. Or you might go, I've learned a lot about the body. I did anatomy, I did physiology, I did sports science, and I just really like more than sports science, more allied health. So then you open yourself up after our course to go, okay, I might go do a postgrad in physiotherapy, or I might go sit the GAMSEC and study medicine. So there's lots of different pathways you can take from doing our course as a foundation. The beauty of what we do is we use sport as a medium to teach you these things. So you might come in really loving sport, so you learn lots about the human body using sport as that medium, but then you'll find your pathway onto it. So you kind of have this really good foundation for human science. But in here, we are really interested in how do we measure the body's capacity to produce energy and utilize energy. And we do that in a number of ways. Some of the toys you can see are ways that we can do that, looking at different energy systems. But physiology is about adaptation and using and producing energy, and we can do that in a number of ways. One way that Prashant's been looking at it is by looking at manipulations in environmental conditions. Okay, so Prashant, you want to tell everyone what
Yes, so my PhD, I look at the effects of heat. So when we think about heat, it's just not hot, dry. I mean, Perth summer is hot, it's dry, right? But what about other countries, like for example in Singapore, it's humid. So let's say we have Western Force, they are training day, day out, Perth summer. It's hot, it's dry. But they are flying over to Singapore to play against some other rugby team in humid environment. Do you think they can perform the same way? So that's what I'm trying to find, and vice versa. If you have someone coming from Singapore, it's so humid, we train day in and day out for the whole year, while you're playing against Western Force here in summer. Do you think they can perform the same way? We don't know. So that's what my PhD is on. So where the magic happens is here. For those who can't see, you might want to just come over. So this is the heat chamber. Yeah, it's relatively hot, 40 degrees. If anybody wants to come in, you can. So what I do is I have participants coming in to get a baseline of how they respond to different types of heat. Alright, once I get a baseline, I will put them into different groups. For example, hot dry or hot humid. So they train for 10 days in here, cycling 60 minutes in either of the groups. Right? And eventually we do a post-testing to see how much your adaptations have changed across pre and post. Your core temperature, your heart rate, your skin temperature, your sweat rates, so on and so forth. Right? This is just adaptations. And in terms of performance, we actually do use that pipe behind you. It should be in the chamber for today's open house. It's here. So this is the front access pipe. I do 30 seconds, this Wingate maximal testing, where participants will cycle as hard as they can. All out happens for 30 seconds. And in this system, we can get the mean power and the maximum power across the time. So at this moment, can I get one volunteer?
Nice.
Right.
It's got the Crocs as well, just be interesting. So, guys, what we're going to do here is we're going to do a 30-second Wingate test. So for those guys that are doing their PE studies at school, there are 3 energy systems that work together for us to produce energy. But what are 2 of those? The two key ones you probably learned about at school. What are those 2 energy systems? Aerobic and anaerobic. Okay, so aerobic is this energy system that uses oxygen to catalyze ATP, or the energy we use at the level of the muscle. So the oxygen-dependent one we'll talk about soon. But this one, the 30-second Wingate, this one is gives us the ability to look at the anaerobic contributions of work, that really high-intense energy production. For the 30-second test, we generally will see a really quick peak in our power output from anaerobic means, but then as we start to continue to pedal, that power output will come down because we'll become more aerobic to try and sustain the sprint. So in terms of our energy system contribution, for those guys doing PE studies, this work will be about 60% anaerobic and about 40% aerobic. So we're really tapping into both our energy systems in this test. So our job, we have the hard job. Sorry, what was your name, mate? Aiden's got the easy job. He just has to pedal as hard as he can. Our job, we have to cheer him on for 30 seconds, which sounds easy, but after about 10 seconds, you guys are going to get really bored. So when we get to 10 seconds, that's when you've got to get your cheer him on, and we'll count him down for the last 5 seconds to make sure he finishes off as strong as he can. All right, so we're going to count you in, Aiden. You're going to stand up, Aiden.
Ready? Rest effort. 2, 1.
How was that? Good? Good. Put your bow on, gave it a nudge. All right, let's check it out on the numbers. I used to work with a cycling coach who always used to tell his athletes, you can't hide from the numbers. So if you think you're giving it a nudge, let's have a look. So we have a peak power output here of 709 watts. Nice job. And an average power output of 579. Now, what you normally see is you might see a higher peak and a lower sustained effort. What this says about you, mate, is your peak isn't quite as high, but your mean is actually much higher than normal. So it probably says you're a more aerobically trained individual. What do you do for sport?
Basketball and Muay Thai.
Okay, cool. Bit of aerobic kind of activity. So good numbers, and on the whole, these numbers are way above average. But I'll give you some context. So we have a peak power output here. So the peak power that we achieved was 700 watts. Who watches the Tour de France? Anyone watch the Tour de France? You have it sometimes? Okay, so obviously it's a month-long race in France, usually endurance cycling. So you can head back to Mum, Dad, that's all right. So back in a former life, I used to work at the Institute of Sport. So I did my degree here, so same as what you guys are thinking. I did a degree here, I went on and did a bit of research for an honours year, and then I went and did a PhD. So I spent 7 or 8 years here learning about sport in application to high performance environments. So my goal was always to work with athletes. And so I did a bit of work with the national hockey team, and then I moved over to the WA Institute of Sport and worked with a bunch of different athletes over there before coming back here to teach. But at the Institute, back in 2009-10, this gangly kid came in. His name is Luke Durbridge, and we used to call him Turbo. Had a big engine. So about 2 or 3 years after meeting him, he ended up getting a contract and riding on the Tour de France, and he's been riding the Tour ever since. He's probably coming close to the end of his career now, so he's probably about to retire. Anyway, Turbo used to come back from the tour when he was on holiday, see his family because he was still young, and we'd bring him into the lab. A lab much like this, had a treadmill, but slightly bigger. And because he was a cyclist, we'd put him on the treadmill to ride his bike, because you can get lots of speed work on the treadmill in a really controlled environment. But Turbo would come back and he'd be like, oh, I have to do 5 10-minute efforts today at tempo, so stay in the lab, we can just chat while I do them. No worries. And you can operate the treadmill. I was pretty much the monkey, I just do whatever he says, right? So turn the treadmill on, turn it up. Read watts that come out of the bike. That's what he was doing. Anyway, so Turbo was on the treadmill, his 10-minute efforts, was 550 minutes of work. His average power output for the session, 550 watts. Okay, so here we just had a peak of 700, given it a nudge. And this isn't to downplay 700 watts, it's still well above average, but we have the average human, we have the human that's interested in sport, then we have elite athlete, like right up here, right? And the stuff they do is amazing. So 550 watts you've been pedaling for 10 minutes, five sets of those. Easy, having a chat. So we have a peak power output here of 700 watts. Who's heard of Chris Hoy? Sir Chris Hoy. So he was a cyclist. retired now, only just retired. So Chris Hoy was probably the most famous track sprint cyclist in our generation anyway. So if I was to stand next to Chris Hoy, which is my leg, put this leg next to it and like grab Prashant's leg, that's probably Chris Hoy's leg, one leg. Okay, that's his quad. Okay, so he has two of those and then his pistons. So peak power output of someone like Chris Hoy, what do you think it would be? So we just had 700 of someone trying really hard. 2,000, almost. 2,500 watts peak power output. But he's the sprintiest of the sprinty type person ever, right? Like he's a world champion, Olympic medalist. His job is to go really fast over 200 meters, and that's it. So he's on and then off, and then he does a whole lot of resting. Okay? But that's the sort of power output, anaerobic contribution that he would contribute to that type of work. So that's anaerobic contribution or capacity. Over here, we measure the more aerobic contribution to work. So who's seen pictures of athletes with masks on and tubes coming out of the mask? That's what this is. Okay, so this is a metabolic analyzer, and what it does is we know the oxygen that's in the air around us, so we know what's going in. We can measure here the oxygen and carbon dioxide coming out. Okay, so if we know what's gone in and what's come out, the difference is obviously what we use. The more oxygen we can use, the better athlete we are, basically. The more oxygen we use, the more energy we produce, means the faster we go. Okay, so that boils it down to something super simple. So here, if we were to measure the VO2 max, the maximal aerobic power of anyone in this room, we would see the value would sit somewhere between 25 and 30 mils of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. So don't worry about the unit, but that's the number, 25. Those of you that are more trained aerobically, you might sit up around the 40s or 50s. If we have anyone in the room that's like a state level runner, distance runner, they might sit in the 60 mils per kg per minute range. Okay? So we range somewhere from 25 through to 60. 60 would be a well-trained athlete at a state level. Okay? So who knows who the current world record holder of the marathon is? Anyone? His name is Eliud Kipchoge. Yeah? So Eliud Kipchoge's maximal VO2 would sit around 80 to 90 mils per kg. So he's using, that's per kilogram of body weight, he's using 30 mils of oxygen more than a state level decent runner. Okay, so you can use more oxygen means you can produce more energy. Alright, so remember those numbers and we'll come back to them. What we need is an individual who can run and walk for us on a treadmill. Who wants to do that? You can do that. How'd you go? You've been dogged in. What was your name?
Oliver.
Oliver, can you jump on the treadmill for me? Oliver, do you play sport?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I play baseball.
You play baseball?
Yeah.
Excellent. Who do you play for?
Wanneroo.
Wanneroo. Okay, very good. Have you run on a treadmill before?
Yes.
You have, good. So what we do here is we put a pool in front of our participants, so you've got something nice to look at while you're running. So then we put a glass window and a staircase behind you. So the impetus is don't fall off, but you're going through the window down the stairs. All right, are you in school or are you finished school?
School.
You're at school, what year are you in? Year 12. Whereabouts? Ocean Roof. All right. I'm going to turn this on. We're going to start the treadmill. It's going to start very slowly. Thank you. Where's subject at school? 6 from 6. 6 from 6 today. Students have said English is their worst subject. Something's happening in English teaching WA. This is Oliver walking to English. This is the speed that he goes at. He's not too happy to go there. All right, and your favourite subject, Oliver? Oh, second favourite. Thank you.
Yeah.
Phys Ed, okay, cool. We were expecting Phys Ed. You're an anomaly. We've had 5 out of 6 Phys Eds. Anyway, this is Oliver walking to human biology. So he's a bit more enthused to get there. He likes it. But this is 5k an hour. So this is the pace that humans generally walk when they're trying to get something. Okay, 5k an hour. Oliver, I want you to keep walking for as long as you can. Okay, If you feel like it's getting a little big, you can hold on to it. Alright, I'm going to put the speed up here to 8.5 k an hour. See if you can keep walking forward there. How does that feel? Good. Pretty quick? What would be easy now, running or walking? Going to a jog. Alright, did you see how his gait changed and he started to want to run? So between 8 and 9 k an hour is this critical speed in all humans. Elliot, Kipchoge, and me. All of us in between, at this speed, we all go, actually, you know what, we're going to run. Okay, so this is the speed where it's more efficient to run from an oxygen cost perspective than it is to walk. So our body will naturally tell us to start running. Alright, are you good? Can we go a bit quicker? So our body naturally wants to run at this pace. But who's ever seen race walkers at the Olympics? Yep. So what's the rule in race walking? Yep. So 2 feet in contact with the ground at all times. If you film them and slow them down, they're all being none of them are walking. But to the naked eye, it looks like they are. And there's 2 events. There's a 50k event and there's a 20k event. We're going to put you to the 50k event speed, which keep in mind, humans want to run at this speed, right? They don't want to walk. So this is the speed for the 50k event at the Olympics. Are you okay? Just tell us if you're struggling. Hold on if you're struggling. About 13.5 k an hour. So this is how quickly they're going in the 50k event. Alright, can you go any faster? Yeah. Alright. Now we're going to the 20k event. Okay, this is still race walking, by the way. So this is the pace they go for the 20k event at the Olympics. It's a race walk. Alright, so this is a 4-minute K pace. About 40 minutes every 10 kilometers. Alright, I won't slow you down. You just hang on to something. Alright, let's give it a round of applause. Alright, so the current world record is a marathon. Anyone know what that is? Anyone? Alright, current world record is 2 hours and 35 seconds. 2:00. The same runner, so Elliot Kipchoge, he's the fastest man over a marathon. He's done it in 1 hour 59. But there's, so anyone interested, there's a documentary called Breaking 2. It's really contrived setting. They have paces. Paces would come in and out. They had a car that they followed. They had this aerodynamicist figure out the paces shape. And so it was all contrived to make sure that the human went under 2 hours. The first time they tried it, they failed. The second time they tried it, they went under. Okay? So humans can run under 2 hours for a marathon, but the current world record is 2 hours and 5 seconds. So I'm going to blow your mind with this math question now. This is going to test those of you that are doing methods or not. Okay? How far is a marathon? 42 kilometres. If I can do 42 kilometres in 2 hours, what's my running speed?
21 kilometers an hour.
It's a mathematician in the room, just half of it. Okay? 2 hours, half. Alright. Lots of people have been doing this all morning. It's not that hard. Alright. 21k an hour. Let's get up there. Listen to the treadmill. This is 21k an hour. This is world record marathon pace. Anyone seen a marathon? Anyone watched a marathon on TV? You see the guys up in the race? You see them up? They look like they're gliding. They do not look like they're struggling at all. Okay? In their stride. It's like if you or I went outside and we went for a jog, that's what they look like when they're running this marathon. They're doing it for 2 hours. It's this quick. Okay, so there's humans that like sport, and there's elite athletes. Alright? Alright, I'm going to jump on this and just show you what it looks like. You've seen them run it at the Olympics or at the World Champs or at the Marathon in Asia, and they look really good. So I'll show you what it looks like when one of us do it. Okay, if you want to make it. Alright, here we go. World record marathon pace for someone who's not a Kenyan runner. I reckon I've got this on the treadmill, because keep in mind, it's kind of running for me. Making me run this pace. I reckon I've got it for a minute if I had to. But I'm going to go for probably another 5 seconds, just to give you a sense of how try and talk to you, there's like an oxygen debt where it's like I've been on that thing doing a sprint like we did at the start. So that's 30 seconds at world record pace. And these guys do it for 2 hours. So now a pop quiz. I said that a well-trained state level runner in WA had a VO2 max of what? 60 mils per kg per minute. For Eliud Kipchoge to run that fast for 2 hours, you would have to work at a VO2 of 60 to 65 mils per kg per minute to be able to do that.